I wonder how representative you think the media conversation is to what ordinary black and brown and whatever people are sort of talking around the dinner table.
It's not representative at all, would be my answer to that.
Yeah.
Because I think the actual experiences of black people are so diverse that to even use a term like black voice or the black community does a massive disservice to those different values, those different points of views, those different experiences. So I think, and the kinds of things as well that black people often discuss, the kind of values that black people often espouse, are often counter to the kind of values that many of these self-appointed black pundits or intellectuals or whatever you want to call them, what they express. Because I think one of the things about many black people in the UK, I'm thinking in particular of many black African communities, is the extent to which religion plays a pivotal role in how they see themselves. And the kind of cultural or social conservatism which is implied by that is not something that we often discuss.
Well, they don't have pride flags everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not something that is often discussed because that would lead to many awkward conversations. And in fact, I think it's one thing I want to emphasize is that London is the most religious place in the UK. And
really?
London is the most...
because of and by the way, acceptance of LGBT.
It's the most conservative.
Yes.
It's the most conservative in that respect.
Yeah.
And it's because of ethnic
Yeah.
minorities.
Well,
who
religious.
have a different set of values.
Yeah,
and-
exactly. Yeah, and it's not just like the black or even Asian Muslim. It's also like Eastern European immigrants as well, who often tend to be quite Catholic as well.
Yeah.
In terms of their religious background. So that's why there is that kind of tension, which is that in the most multicultural parts of the country, you also get the most religious sensibilities which are expressed.
And yet, at the same time, the white middle-class liberal expects all of these people to vote Labour and to have deeply progressive views.
But they do, though. This is the question I was going to ask you. Is
they do. Many
why
of them
do
do.
big cities then, and it's not just London, obviously, but why do all the big cities, and you see it here and in America,
that's
one
true.
of the uniting factors is they're always consistently left-wing. Which is interesting given what you're saying. How do you explain that?
Yeah, I think it's just a kind of political tribalism, essentially, rather than any sort of genuine consideration of the policies and the values that are embodied by any particular party. So I think with voting preferences, it's often based on vibes. It's often based on any sort of pre-intellectual affiliation rather than any genuine consideration of any sort of what the parties actually stand for.
Do you think part of it is also as well that, you know, if you come from an ethnic minority, that automatically means that you are in the minority.
Yeah.
And therefore you do not want to stand out as much because you don't want to be alienated from your tribe, whatever your tribe may be, by being conservative or saying, hey guys, I think this commentator is actually talking nonsense.
I think that is a part of it. But I also think there's another striking dimension to discussions about diversity and politics. So one of the interesting things about the UK is that in the Conservative Party, there are many prominent conservative politicians that come from an Asian background, including our current Prime Minister, Mr. Rishi Sunak. But I think one dimension to this hasn't been spoken enough about, which is that many of these prominent Asian conservative politicians didn't arrive directly from Asia. They came through the route of East Africa And I think it makes sense why the families espouse conservative points of views, because if you come from if your family comes from an East African country where they were basically kicked out by the government.
They were like the Jews of East Africa.
Yeah, they were like the Jews. They were basically kicked out because they were considered parasites. If you come from that particular background, it would make sense why you would not trust the government to solve all the issues in society. It would make sense why you wouldn't trust the state. It would make sense why you would emphasize the importance of family, the importance of individual striving, individual aspiration, if you come from that particular background. And I think it does make sense why people like Rishi Sunak and the other prominent conservative Asian politicians are conservative because of that particular background. And I think it also makes sense why somebody like Kemi Badenoch, who's also a very prominent conservative politician from a West African background, because even though she was born in the UK, she actually grew up in Nigeria. And when she was growing up in Nigeria, Nigeria was a military dictatorship. So it would make sense why she's got many positive views about the UK.